Hello, I am Greg Lindberg. I'm the son of Eunice and now co-owner of Lakeside and Friedens Row together with my sisters Karen and Lori. I'm a long-time software developer and I love to build things. When I see, something that could be improved or whatever, I say I could fix that. Sometimes, fools rush in. But I'd like to show you some work that I've done on this. About 5 or 6 years ago, I started looking at it, and I was, at that time, Mom was declining, and I was, thinking of the business aspect of Sugar Beach, and I just was really surprised that owners did not have any access directly to looking at reservations for their cabins, and couldn't retrieve financial information or other information. And I thought, gee, that's something I could fix. So I developed a prototype that I thought was a real simple, intuitive thing. And I was talking to Kim about that and realized quickly that I had missed something in my prototype. I didn't include the ability to adjust occupancy on a nightly basis. Sometimes you have 6 occupants, sometimes 2 in a given stay. And that was a major it needed to be included. The other thing is that it was a web-based application. And at that time, the office at Sugar Beach didn't even have internet, so that was a non-starter. So I put it on the shelf. Now, after actually becoming a part owner, I have a little more interest in this, and this summer I had some time and I thought I'd pick it up again and see if I could create something that solved those 2 problems, although I know the office probably has internet now. The current system that we have there runs on Excel, which is a spreadsheet. It's not a database. There are some vulnerabilities and potential problems with Excel. If you were to Google spreadsheet horror stories, you'd find a lot of them. Basically, the biggest problem, I think, is that it's only used by one user. And whereas in a database, it's used by multiple users who are checking things all the time. And in a spreadsheet, there's lots of dependencies in one formula based on other cells in the spreadsheet or other pages in the spreadsheet, and things sometimes can get errors can get introduced. And the other thing to be aware of is that spreadsheets are quite vulnerable to fraud. I don't think we have anything to worry about I know we don't have anything to worry about with Kim and Lee, but thinking ahead long term, if management were to change at some point, it's something to be aware of and cognizant of. So what I'd like to do is run through the solution I developed. It consists of 3 different components. The most important one is a Microsoft SQL Server database that I rent on a web hosting service, and it costs about $200 a year. I just kind of use it as a sandbox or demo or testing platform. But these things are easy to rent and set up, and they're backed up nightly, and I keep a long record or keep multiple copies of the backups, which in turn are backed up off of my computer. The other components are the existing web application, which I've modified somewhat, and also a desktop application, which really doesn't make use of the internet, except when the user wants to synchronize data between the database on that computer and the one on the web server. So with this desktop application, which runs totally on its own, we could experience, if we experienced the worst possible solar flares, or assuming we didn't lose power altogether, big cyber attacks or something, we'd still be able to make reservations at Sugar Beach. It wouldn't be a problem. So let me walk through these applications for you. I'll start with the desktop app. Okay, let's start up the desktop application. It's called Sugar Beach DT. Now you notice that it pops up a little window in the very beginning, and what it's doing there is checking to see if there's an updated version that's been published, and if there is, it'll automatically download that, because it's a great feature. There's going to be changes as we have experience with it. That's it's kind of inevitable, and it makes it very easy. So you see here lots of bars, and let me explain what this. It's a calendar interface is the primary interface, and I thought, this is intuitive, simple. So kind of complicated to create. It goes out and queries 3 months worth of reservation data to start with, and then it loops through that data and also loops through a calendar object at the same time and draws this calendar, and every time it plots a reservation bar, it adds a hyperlink so it knows what to do if you click on that. The same thing for the empty calendar dates. So to create a reservation here, you simply click on an empty date, and it's real simple if it's a repeat customer. If it's not, you'll have to enter some other data for contact information, but let's assume it's a returning customer. Maple Mud. Hit autofill. All this stuff is entered. Now we have a starting date of April 7th. We just have to click on the ending date, April 14th. We specify the type of user. It's not an owner. The occupants, which we can change later if there are variations by night. Put 2. Now we're done. Everything has been created for this reservation. We have the financial amounts here, the pre-tax rent, the sales and lodging, taxes, the total charge, the minimum deposit, the remaining, the amount owed, which is the total charge, the owner's share, and the manager's share. So if we save that, we have a new reservation here, and you can see that it's yellow. Now all the colors have a different meaning. In most cases they indicate the payment status, but in the case of a gray color it indicates use by owner. So yellow means that we're awaiting the deposit. I should point to these down here. Blue means the deposit has been paid. Orange means the deposit is overdue. In other words, one of our business rules is that deposit has to be paid within 10 days of the start of the reservation. If it's orange, that has not yet happened, and it's overdue. Red means that there has not been a full payment for this reservation. The deposit may have been paid, but for some reason either maybe the check bounced or just hasn't been entered into the system yet. There's an unpaid balance. The lilac color means it's paid, but it's not yet banked. And I added that after last year's little debacle. Just I don't know. It probably may not be totally necessary, but you can update. The user here can do a simple update by hitting a checkbox to indicate that yes, it has been deposited in the bank, and at that point it'll turn green. And if it's green, all is well. It's totally done. So how do we edit a reservation? Let's take that same one, and let's say the deposit comes in. To fill in that, we just click on the amount here, or we could enter the amount if it happened to be different than what we're asking for. We indicate the type of payment, we hit save. It is now turned blue. Say it's come to the end of the reservation now and the payment gets made. We could click this. But we can also, say we learn that the occupancy has changed for certain nights. So you can see we have an occupancy record that's been created for each night of the stay, and there's a number of occupants which was based on what was selected here. So we have learned that, probably should have picked a different one because the maximum occupancy for center is 4, and I think it's the same. No, this is a good one actually. As you can see that the rate is $159 plus $20 for each occupant in excess of 2. So I've changed a couple of nights here, which means that the charge is going to change. So if I hit save, these values will change, and this changes. It's now $1,340. So customer makes a payment by check, we hit save, and it's now turned lilac. Put the money in the bank, go back in here, check this, hit save, and it's green. So that pretty much covers the editing, the creation and editing of reservations. Pretty simple. So these other buttons down here are to navigate from one month to another. It just scrolls, backward or forward. I have a print calendar button. Chemists and others have, I guess, have talked about the importance of a paper calendar, and I've been hoping that we could, eliminate that. But it did provide the option here to print calendar. You can print a 2-month calendar. The bars would be rendered in black and white with the name of the customer on each bar, just in order to save expensive colored ink. And because these are changing, these colors are changing as you're making edits, so I thought that made more sense. The other button here is called Sync with Server, and this will only work when you have an internet connection. It'll tell you if you don't have one, and just try again later when you do have one. Syncing is, it's somewhat complex, but I'm really familiar with it. I developed an application for the Hennepin County assessors about 15 years ago for taking out into the field and updating all the characteristics of the housing in the county. And so we had 50 to 100 assessors out there using that and making their edits, and they were concerned because they didn't have, there were some spots in the county where they didn't have wireless connectivity, so we chose to do it this way. They'd save it to their local database on the computer, and then when they got back to the office and they had network connectivity, they hit their sync button and it would update a SQL Server database the county had, and it would also update a mainframe database, which the county also had. But it would send their edits up to that database, and it would also pull any edits that others had made or synced back down so that everybody's database was the same and up to date every time the sync was executed. And that's been running for 15 years flawlessly. So let's hit Sync with Server. So all those changes I made now are now up on the web server database. Okay, so we got all this data in here. It's not really, how do we get it out? How do we make use of it? We've got a tab for Excel extracts, and I've got 4 of them set up right now. There could be any number of them, but these are the ones I've got. Reservations is kind of the big kahuna. That's everything we've saved in there relating to the reservation, except for those individual occupancy records for each night. So let's take the month of March, and we can take either one or all or some cabins, and let's create an extract. It's done a query here against the database, and let's hit extract to Excel. It has now created an Excel document that has been saved, it's telling us, in our documents file under a folder that was created called SB Excel Extracts, and it gives us the name, which is, includes the date covered and what it's showing. And it's asking, do you want to open it now? So let's go ahead. So it's launching Excel, and it's opening the file that we just saved. And so this is the title here. It's got cabin names, it's got date from, date to, all the contact information. It's got when it was created, when it was last updated. Oops. It's got all the financials, the pre-tax amount, management share, owner's share, sales tax, lodging tax, total charge, deposit paid, whether the deposit was forfeited, additional amounts paid, the remaining owed deposit method, the final method, and the status. So it's pretty much all and we have a number of other reports too. An occupancy report, sale, which uses those occupancy records, and as Kim uses those for whatever allocation method she's got, those records will be what she would use. I don't know if these counts here. One thing that's useful, I think, to owners, and as I said before, you can get all of these reports as an owner off of the internet website too, is the percent of calendar days rented, which is essentially an occupancy rate. So that's useful information to see. What's your occupancy rate for the whole year or for given months or whatever. There's one other tab, which is a backup. Endless backups here. You have the ability here to make a copy of your local database. That's the one that's in your computer. Since you're syncing every day, that's essentially also a backup. Pulling up. So this is just one more layer of backup that is easy to provide. So I included it. It's very easy to do. You simply hit this thing and tell it where you want the backup, and then there's a restore, which will, you can create a whole number of backups for different days. On the restore one, you pick the one you want to use to do the restore with. And then the sync button is basically exactly the same as the sync button on the calendar. It does the same thing. So let's, this is just a kind of a debugging thing, testing thing. Okay, so let's move on to the internet. Okay. Now this is just some information here that I have for people looking at the demo. It wouldn't, but it's basically there's the same viewing and creation and editing features in this as there is in the desktop, but you do have to be logged in. So if you're not an administrator or an owner, you're not allowed to use any of this stuff. If you're an owner, you have different abilities than you do if you're an administrator. You can only view the stuff for your cabin. You can't edit stuff. But you can extract data. So let's log in as an owner. It's the Schoenrock account for demo purposes. And let's look at reservations. We just see these two cabins. If we click on one, we can get at the detail, but we can't edit it. If we extract data, we got exactly the same reports and options. So we want to look at all our reservations again for the month of March. We can extract to Excel. It's a little bit different here because we're operating on the internet, and it's downloading a file to our downloads folder, which is in a different format. It's HTML format, which means we could double click on it here. We can view it in a browser. We don't have to open up a spreadsheet. If you do want to manipulate it in a spreadsheet, you can simply copy all the cells, open up a spreadsheet, and paste them in. So you could use any spreadsheet if you know, regardless of whether you had Excel. Let's see. Let's log in as an administrator. And open up the admin thing. We have the ability to manage cabins, which means we can assign the cabin owner or manager. We can set the seasonality, we can set the base rate, we can set the occupancy for base rate, or the occupancy limit for the base rate, the rate increase per additional occupant, and the maximum occupancy, and whether or not the cabin is an active rental. Under maintain Sugar Beach business rules, we set all the factors that are used in calculating rates beyond the ones we just looked at for individual cabins. These are the kind of organization-wide business rules that affect the calculations. So we got this state sales tax rate, which we could update. We got the Cook County sales tax or lodging tax rate. We got the management share. We got the number of days of base rate rental that it must be paid as a deposit, set at 1 currently. The number of days before the start of the reservation the deposit is due, which is set at 10. And the minimum nights of stay for a reservation is set at 2. So if we change any of those, it'll all work differently. It'll make use of what the current business rules are as determined here. One other thing I wanted to show you, and I could log out here, and we could still look at this, is I've got another view here which is non-interactive, but it's based on live data. And it would be very easy to host this in the public-facing website, which would allow customers, when they're looking at cabins, to go look at, okay, what's available. And they'd know that before they call Kim, and might save a little time for Kim. So all we'd have to do is add something called an iframe to our public website, which is a window into another website. And then, you know, when the iframe is opened up, it would trigger, it would just display this, it would trigger this and display it in that public website, and tells you call this number to make your reservations. So it could be a real time saver, and the one drawback would be it might be harder to say no to certain people if they say, oh, this is open. I want it, but that's seems to me kind of a minor consideration. But anyway, that's pretty much all I have to show you. I want to mention another link to another demo that I put together on an interim path or an alternative path. Kim has stated very strongly that she wants her to continue using her Excel program. She likes it, and it would take time to transfer to a different system. Possible alternative path or interim path would be viable, I think. I'm not at all familiar with her Excel worksheet, but I would assume that it either has or could have a page that shows all of the reservations by, with a to and a from date and customer contact information and the financial, what was paid. It would be very possible, and I'll demo how that would work in my other video, to periodically or regularly extract information from that view in her spreadsheet up to the database on the web, and then owners would be able to use that and view that information through this type of internet application. It wouldn't have all the data, probably. I mean, I doubt that it would have current payment status, that kind of thing, but it probably wouldn't have all the occupancy records. So that occupant, a different form of, you'd still be able to look at an occupancy rate for your cabin, but you wouldn't be able to, look at the individual numbers of occupants for each night, unless maybe it's in the spreadsheet, in which case maybe you could. But that just wanted to mention that's a possibility, and I have a link to a video on that. I also have my email contact. If you look in the comments section below this, I've entered that as a comment, the name of this other YouTube video and my email address. So thanks for watching. It's pretty lengthy. I appreciate your patience. Hopefully this is something that we can continue discussing. And so long for now.